In Bloons TD6, the aim of the game is to get a lot of money and a lot of towers, but it appears right here you have no money, and it looks like soon you're not going to have enough towers, and the balloons are simply just getting through. So it looks like you're playing half cash mode, and if you found yourself in this pickle on the dreaded half cash mode, you are definitely not alone. So today I'm going to be showing you how to go from a noob to a pro in half cash mode. And to start off with it, let's take a look at more so why this game mode is so hard. So why half cash is so hard. And there are a few reasons that I came up for it, but it seems that a lot of people are saying that half cash is harder than Chimps mode, while better players tend to disagree. But I think that's because Chimps is a lot more fun, and you get more rewarded when you beat Chimps. There's a lot less restrictions, and there's also a lot less content. For example, if you just look up BTD6 Chimps, there's going to be tons of videos, tons of strategies, tons of tutorials. But when we go to half cash, the best thing we're going to get is some very subpar guides from a year or two ago. So there definitely is a lot less material out for people who want to try to learn. And also, half cash has a few very tight bottlenecks more at the beginning of the game, which can be very disheartening and discouraging to play. And it's also heavily dependent on monkey knowledge, which is something that a lot of new players have pretty much none of. So those are just some of the reasons why half cash may seem really hard. But for you, that's going to end soon, because I have devised a certain method that will work on beginner maps to help you beat your first half caches, and will also give you big tips later on. So to start out this method, the first two objectives are going to be select a hero and survive to the hero. And then after that, we're going to be building our first tower and focusing on one main tower. And then after that, the fourth objective is going to be alk buff. This is huge, and we'll talk about that later. And then the fifth objective is beat round 40, the last bottleneck. And then the sixth is to fill in all of the missing gaps. And after that, you pretty much win. So let's take a look at the hero. A good hero for half cash is one, cheap to buy, because as you can tell, as you probably already have known from experience, getting money is hard, so having a cheap hero is more than very nice. But also, it needs to be extremely effective in the early game, because on pretty much any half cash map that you're going to be playing, the early game is the hardest part. So there are a few heroes that come to mind, with a few oddballs like Ben and Corvus that we will be looking at later in this video on some harder maps. So I'm going to be starting off with using Quincy on Monkey Meadows, and we're going to be using no monkey knowledge to make this very simple and very easy for all of the new players. We're going to be doing some harder examples later on too. So the first objective is to survive the early game. So we're going to do that with 000 darts and 000 subs. No upgrades, they're not worth it. Just get them, and we're going to have to greed it out for the hero as fast as possible. And you should not be nervous to leak lives. I'm leaking lives here. It's fine. The only live that will kill you is the last one. So just keep that in mind. And you can also change the targeting of the first dart monkey to make your save up a little bit better. Then our third objective is going to be buying the hero. We got this super early, round 10. That's a pretty good round to buy your hero. And if you need a little help getting that, you might be able to sell a dart monkey. But once you get your hero down early, you should be good. And then your fourth objective is going to be buying your starting tower. We're going to be focusing in on one tower to make it all easy. If you need to use your abilities, you can do so. But these towers are going to be strong with alk, such as the Bloon Jitsu just shown, or the triple guns, which will also be shown later. Then from there, we're going to be wanting to just go straight for the upgrades. Buying multiple towers will be the bane of your existence, because you're pretty much just going to die, and you need to be aware of some rounds like round 28. We didn't have anything there, so a good tip to know is that you can always back out and retry the round, and you're not going to lose your border or anything. So that's going to make things a lot easier, just if you're not aware of the rounds in particular. But 28 has the first sleds, so I'm going to grab the Alchemist, which will be the alk buff later, and that will be able to take care of it all. Quincy and this ninja will then be able to put in some good work, and it's going to feel like you really aren't going to be making any progress at all, but that's just how half cash mode is, and that's one of the hard realities that's going to sink in. So why, for the beginner maps at least, am I recommending that your first tower either be the Jitsu or the triple guns? That's because the Alk buff pairs well with low damage towers, high projectile count, and high pierce towers. And these two towers are the cleanest, the simplest, and easiest of all of the towers out there that you could start off with, making them ideal for half cash. So things that just work with Alk work in half cash. That's the big thing to note. But round 40 is coming here. We're going to be using our ability, and as you can see, this looks kind of close. Round 40 is one of the bottleneck rounds. After round 40, it's usually pretty easy. So round 40 is typically the last hard round that you're going to encounter in half cash. On harder maps, that may not be the case, but here it's pretty simple. So I'm going to get my cross path on the Alk just to allow me to do some more damage, and I might also buy low level druids like an 011 druid here that will allow me to do some more Moab damage and take it out more cleanly. Again, with no monkey knowledge, the first round 40 Moab is going to be very tough, and if you're spamming a bunch of random towers, that's going to be even more tricky. We can sell that druid, don't be afraid to sell, you don't have to keep it, and then we can get my Jitsu and stuff. Now, as you can see on round 49, it looks like we really can't take out these big hordes of Moabs, so we're going to be filling the gaps in by getting a high pierce tower, at least before round 63. I'm going to be going for a recursive cluster here, and I'll be getting the village, so we get drums and camo. That's all very important too. But we need a high pierce tower so we can take out the big waves of ceramics and other various balloons that come in on different waves. So two examples that you could use for these beginner maps are your recursive cluster or your more glaives. These guys will do very well. They're very nice and very effective. Now, moving on from that, we'll just get our village up, nice and easy. Beware of round 59, it has camo leads, but with this strategy, round 63, everything else after that is just going to be super easy, no issues. Now I have good ceramic damage. The general damage comes from the Jitsu, but I might want some more Moab damage, so let's pick one of these Moab damage towers. We have the Symphonic Resonance, which is a new 004 Mermonkey, very good with dealing with Moabs, and there's also an Operation Dartstorm, which also will be very good. I'll be checking out the Operation Dartstorm later, but for this showcase, I'm going to be using the Symphonic Resonance, and that guy's just going to be dealing with the Moabs nice and easy. You can also, remember, use Quincy's abilities if needed. It's always better to hit that one ability than die. It's a lot less effort to hit one ability than restart everything else again. So just be able to use your abilities if needed, but everything here looks like it's going to be super easy. I have a bunch of cash left over. Don't do this. If you're in an actual game, make sure you spend your cash if you don't have anything that you need to save up, just to be safe. But for the purpose of showing how good these strategies are, or well, how good this method is of beating half cash mode for beginners, we got quite a good amount left over. I guess that also just shows that the later in half cash is a lot easier than the harder early game rounds, particularly after round 40. But that is the first strategy on a beginner map, and now let's move on to an advanced map if you're having some more struggles there. This is going to be Quiet Street Chimps. It's a lot tougher, but I'm still using no monkey knowledge. I'm going to be using Sada though. It is a paid hero, but Sada is very effective. Another one of those super effective half cash heroes, and this method will work without monkey knowledge all the way up to these intermediate maps. So it's not like you can't beat half cash because you don't have your monkey knowledge. You still can use this very simple method, the exact same thing, nothing too complicated just yet, all the way up to some of these harder maps. On round 28 here, I am going to be going for the sniper though, just because on a little bit shorter maps, the one Alk really isn't going to be consistent at all. So that is one thing to note. But other than that, I'm going to be going for my Jitsu just fine. If it's a primarily water map, then you can go for the submarine. I will note that in version 44.0, if you're playing in 44.0, Intel is bugged. It will not work sometimes. I learned this the harder way later on in this video, but check the version of your game. If it's after if it's 44.1 or later, you should be good to use that. But my Jitsu is going fine, and then round 40 can be tricky, but when we have Sada, check this out. you just need to pop the mob layer, and then if you use the leaping sword right after it pops, you can grab all 4 ceramics in one hit. So that's what I used to beat round 40 on this map. Again, usually round 40 is going to be the struggle point, the hardest round of your half cash run, and that was definitely true here. After this, I got my Jitsu fine, and then I started working on my next towers after that to fill in some of my gaps. I decided to go for a little bit of an interesting route. It's a little more general, not super high pierce, so I am lacking some pierce on this run. We're going to see that come into play on round 63, but I'm going to be going for a never miss ace, which does decent mob damage and decent general pierce. So for round 63, I still am going to need some help. So I'm going to get Sada, use her abilities, and get a cluster bomb to fill out the rest of my weaknesses. Because this is a harder map, without monkey knowledge, this kind of is understandable that we need to really rely on our abilities this much, but it's good to note that if you do have your abilities, you definitely should use them too. After that, I was able to round things off with yet another very cheap and very effective tier 4 tower, which is going to be the aircraft carrier. Great tower, does everything very well, and that will allow me to really win the rest of this game. So it's pretty much the same thing as before. It's ALK synergies, towers that pair well with ALKs, and then you can fill in your gap with your village and your high pierce. Sometimes your high pierce towers will need ALK, sometimes they won't, and then your heavy Moab damage, which again sometimes they will need ALK, but sometimes they won't. So just having your ALK synergies and then fill in your weaknesses will allow you to have the perfect amount of all types of damage, because if you watched my series on how to BB every map, you know that in order to make a synergy that works, you need everything taken care of. Now, let's move on to the monkey knowledge. For advanced maps and up, you kind of really need your monkey knowledge, and it is massive in half cash. It gives such a huge advantage that you really need. Some points that you really are necessarily going to need is the extra monkey money, more money starting in primary, and then we're going to be getting the mana shield in the magic category, and then in the hero category, having your hero start at level 3 is very important, and then pre-game prep in powers. If you notice, these are all monkey knowledge points that help massively with the early game, because the early game is the hardest part of half cash. All the other monkey knowledge in betweens can help. Some may be very useless, like the plasma accelerator puddles, but other than that, we're going to be doing pretty well. And on advanced maps, which I'm going to be going on, your hero choice definitely can be impactful a lot more, but I'm going to be going for a very unique one, very different from all the other ones that I explained before, because this hero is both more expensive and it doesn't do any damage, and that's going to be DJ Ben Jamin. So the idea of this hero is that it does two things. One, you get more money, which in half cash you don't have much money, so getting more money is nice, as you can see, but you also get the Trojan, and this allows you to push through a hard early game for a very easy late game, and coupled with your new monkey knowledge, this can be worth it, albeit not always worth it, but it can be worth it. And for this example on the advanced map, Underground, we're going to be using it effectively. We're going to come very, very close to death here on round something. My recorder thing is blocking what round it is. I think it was round 22. And then we're going to be getting our upgrades, and just now that we're getting more money, more power, the rest really comes very easy after this. At round 22 was really the last round where I was scared about anything. I could have sold maybe a dart monkey to get my ninja upgrades a little bit earlier, which probably was a smart decision, but we're all good now. We're going to get our lives back, and we're going to be doing a lot better. You can use the Ben ability, just note that it does have a downtime, so don't use it at a bad time, because you don't want to use it and then everything leak by. So that's good to note. And then round 40, check this out. The Trojan makes no insides, so round 40, typically very hard. It will be very easy with this. And then after that, we can explore some different cheap and effective tier 4 towers. Because you're not going into round 100, or the round 80 plus where super ceramics are coming in, you really have a lot of different options that you can go all board and half cash, compared to Chimps mode, where you might have to be greedy and not hold on them. But now we're going to grab some Pierce, so I'm going to get a more glaives here. Very nice, very easy. Got my village, get the drums. We don't need camo detection here because my necromancer actually gets rid of the camo, which is really nice. And then after that, I'm going to need some mob damage. So let's check out some more mob damage with our Operation Dartstorm. We can make it set his track so it covers right over the path, which is very good. And then you alk buff this guy, and he's going to be very effective with taking out the mobs. And now our defense is just set. It's super nice, super easy. I'll just grab a arcane spike here at the end to round it all off, but that wasn't really needed. With Ben also, you can use siphon funding. I didn't really use it a whole lot in this run, but it downgrades all the balloons, which can be very nice for round 80 or something like that. But that is using Ben. Very risky, but very rewarding if you can get Ben down and get going. Now let's look at the expert maps on half cash. And on expert maps, you need to adapt to the map and refigure the strategy. This is where that typical format I showed before isn't exactly going to work. The tips, of course, are going to work, but everything else isn't. So for Bloody Puddles here, I have to go for Quincy because he has the range to cover all 3 lanes, so he's going to be helping on every single round. And then we're going to be getting the intel with the air burst so we can cover the whole map, because a Bloon Jitsu, it's not going to cover everything. The balloons are going to leak in one of the other 5 lanes, so you're going to be needing this intel, which is huge. It's also, again, the other tower that I mentioned is most effective, the triple guns with alk buff, so it's going to be very good. And as you can see here, as I mentioned before, in the current update that I'm making this, which is version 44.0, this guy is bugged, so intel just doesn't work. Like, you can see he's quite not intelling, and I die here. So kind of unfortunate. I wanted to show the Bloody Puddles half cash strategy that I have devised, but I just can't do with this update. So we're going to be switching on to another map instead, another expert map, and just showing how you kind of have to adapt to the map in a specific way. And I'm going to be choosing Sanctuary because this is going to be a really cool one. On Sanctuary, you can really only place your towers up here on this platform, and they'll barely have any coverage of the balloons. So getting a Bloon Jitsu, you're going to die to round 40, guaranteed. Just kind of stuff like that. So I'm going to be going for Oben here. Another very cheap, very effective early game here. You could have done a Magnitude. You probably could have done Quincy too, or maybe Ben if you're being really spicy. But I'm going to be going for a sub on a dart to start off. And again, being very greedy, getting my hero down as early as possible. And we're just going to stick all these guys up at the top. And then after this, I'm going to be looking at what towers are going to be effective on this map specifically. On other easier maps, you aren't going to have to do that. But when you're going on the expert maps on half cash, you're really going to have to be adapting to the map big time, or else you're just going to lose, because the gimmicks of these maps really play into what you have to use. And because it's a lot more restricting than Chimps, it's might be you have to get this or you die. So I decided to go, there's probably a few routes you can go, but I decided to do a really unique one and go for the sharpshooter. Well, starting with a crossbow and then going into a sharpshooter, because it's going to shoot straight down into the middle of that map. It has good range, so it can coverage a lot of the middle of the dead zone on Sanctuary. And then I can also alk buff it to give it some good value. Works well with the alk buff, so of course it's going to be great on half cash mode, and it's going to allow me to deal some good Moab damage. It isn't great with Moab damage, but it does enough to be able to take out the round 40 Moab. So it kind of covers all of what I need. So here comes our sharpshooter. It's going to be effective on this map, and it's going to be a special upgrade based on this map exclusively. You probably could run this on some easier maps, but it's not going to be as effective as, say, your Intel Sub or your Bloon Jitsu. And then after this, we're of course going to get alk buff on him, and he's going to go pretty well. And then we're going to have a lot of gaps that need to be covered. And on expert maps, it's not like the other ones where it's free after 40. We're going to struggle later on, specifically round 63, because as you can see, I have to go home and retry and see a lot of my options that typically would just destroy round 63, which we'll see later. But this time it doesn't work so much because of the restrictions of this map. So we're going to be employing two neat little tricks that if you're doing expert maps on half cash, you might become a little acquaintances too, because they're often very annoying towers to the casual player, and they take a lot of skill and gimmicks to go through. But now let's focus on this Moab, use our Oben abilities, we bramble it, and it is gone. Now I'm going to need to spend some money, so before that we're going to be covering a little gap here before round 63 and the tough round comes in. I just said I'm going to need a bit more pierce, so I'm going to go for a shrapnel 023 sniper down here at the bottom, so the shrapnel goes up. This is another very map specific thing, because a lot of towers just really aren't going to be doing well, but when you have a sniper there at the bottom, it's going to be shooting the shrapnel into the dead zone, which will allow it to kill balloons quite effectively. And of course, alk buff this guy too, because he's worth it to alk buff. Around 59, the camo leads will be fine here. And then I'm going to be using Oben's abilities as much as possible. Not only the brambles, but the trees. They have this huge advantage of giving twice as much money that comes in out. So basically you get normal cash for whatever goes in the trees. But now round 63 is here, and I'm going to be trying to beat round 63 with a lot of different methods. The first one is one of the towers that I mentioned before, which is Velociraptor. He's a great tower on half cash, great for expert. You'll see him a lot later, but unfortunately for now, he's now no good on this map. I'm going to be trying my Jungle's Bounty, great for Pierce, buffed by Oben. Not enough on this map though, sadly. Morglaives just doesn't get the coverage, no good sadly. And now here comes our Golden Eagle. So the Golden Eagle and the Velociraptor Beast Handlers, a lot of people may look at them not with the most enthusiasm because they are Beast Handlers. There's a whole lot of merging to do, whole lot of micro, a lot of retargeting, but they are very, very, very strong when used right. So if we get a degree 24 Velociraptor or Beast Handler and micro it around, use it properly, set this, set the Golden Eagle to strong, it's just going to be doing so much. It will push back the Moabs, and later on these expert maps, these guys are going to be crucial. You probably aren't going to be starting out with them, but for round 63 and up, these guys are just amazing. I did a Ravine half cash run too, where I had my what is it, not ODS, that's a Never-Miss Ace and a Golden Eagle, and that just pushed so far. With all of the limited cash and limited spending, this really was the combination that gave me the most success on this map, and I later won with it, so that was pretty nice. So it's just a really effective map, and on the hardest maps with the hardest gimmicks, these guys will push through and beat up the rounds, still push back the ceramics, still push back the Moabs. The Velociraptor will just eat the ceramics and tear through the Moabs, so it's all nice and all easy with these guys. As you can see, these later rounds are still just very easy. I'm gonna save up and do some selling to get my sniper down there to a elite defender, so we can beat these rounds a little easier, because we didn't really have the greatest cleanup. The Golden Eagle is more like a stall and push back, so I still need some damage, so that upgrade helped me win. But with some selling, we got that, and then after that, we kind of just win. So that was kind of the hiccup and the hurdle of beating an expert map on half cash without using powers, instas, double cash, none of that. We aren't cheating, we're doing this clean. And honestly, most people who get up to here really don't go through this. So if you're like one of these people who want to do expert maps on half cash, go for it, I guess. But really, to be honest, if you don't want to, I wouldn't judge you if you didn't. But to end it all off, we're gonna have a very nice, very easy round 80 on these maps. Just no reason pushing it, just sell everything, get a first strike, and use the first strike ability to win. So that is my methods and my tips on how to beat half cash from beginner maps to expert maps and go from a noob to pro in half cash mode. So thanks for watching, and if you want to subscribe, that would be much appreciated. I have many amazing informative guides and tutorials along with a lot of cool challenges on my channel. So if you like this and you learned a lot, that would be very good for me, and I guess very good for you if you want to learn too. So I have some videos and a playlist right